during my husband's promotion party. He toasted, "To fresh minds not like my wife's 1980s ideas." His coworkers chuckled as he boasted about leaving me soon for someone who understands modern life. But when the papers arrived the next week, he discovered. I'm Brenda. I'm 52, and I live in Naperville, Illinois. Born and raised here. Married Rob when I was 28. We were together for 24 years. 2 kids, both in college now. I thought we were solid. We had our issues, sure. But I thought we were a team. Rob used to be a good man. He worked hard as a software engineer. Quiet, stable. Never flashy, never loud. Just dependable. I stayed home with the kids when they were little, then once they got older, I started a home staging business. Nothing big, but I did okay. It felt like a good balance. He made the bulk of the money, I took care of the home, then I added my own income on top. We had a rhythm. That rhythm started breaking about 3 years ago. It started small. He started making more jokes at my expense. About my clothes. My cooking. My ideas. He rolled his eyes a lot. Called me old-fashioned. He was always on his phone. He got protective of it. He stopped wearing his ring when he traveled for work, said it was uncomfortable. At first I thought maybe it was just stress. Maybe he was tired. Then I thought maybe it was a midlife thing. I brought it up a few times. He brushed it off every time. Said I was being paranoid. Too sensitive. Said I didn't get how people joke anymore. One time he told me, flat out, "You're too emotional to talk to about real stuff." That stung. So I stopped bringing things up. But I started paying attention. Around that same time, he started talking about this girl at work named Ally. She was bright, sharp, full of energy. He'd mention her a lot. Said she was just a coworker. Said she reminded him of what it was like to be hungry and ambitious. She was 29. I knew something was wrong, but I didn't want to jump to conclusions. I didn't want to be that wife. But it felt off. So I started documenting. Quietly. Every weird charge on our credit card, I noted it. Every night he came home late, I wrote it down. Every excuse about client dinners and late meetings. I didn't accuse. I didn't scream. I just kept track. I also started copying his emails whenever I could. He wasn't careful. He'd leave tabs open. I saw one conversation between him and Ally where she sent a selfie from a hotel bed with the caption, "Next time, no meetings after." He responded, "Deal." That was my breaking point. I didn't confront him. I called a lawyer. Deb was a friend of a friend. A divorce attorney, older than me, blunt as hell. I walked into her office with a folder full of screenshots and bank statements. She looked at it, nodded, and said, "We're going to do this right." She had me gather everything. Bank records. Retirement accounts. Stock plans. We found a second checking account Rob opened in just his name. It was where he paid for fancy dinners, Ubers, and hotel rooms. We found an application for a rental unit in the West Loop. He was planning to move out soon. He hadn't told me a word. But he was building a new life behind my back. I let him. Because I wanted him to think I was clueless. Then came the promotion party. He was being promoted to VP at his tech firm. I was surprised he invited me. I wasn't even sure if I should go. But I did. I bought a new dress, did my hair, and smiled the whole night. No one talked to me much. His coworkers barely looked at me. One girl actually asked if I was his mother. Rob laughed when she said it. Then, during his speech, he raised his glass and said, "To fresh ideas and fresh starts. Some people are stuck in the past, but I'm stepping into the future." Then he looked right at me and said, "No offense, babe." Everyone laughed. That laugh hit me like a punch in the gut. Not just the words, but the way no one stopped him. No one said, "That's your wife, man." They just stood there and laughed. I left early. Didn't say a word. The next morning, I slid the divorce papers across the table. He stared at them like he didn't understand. "What is this?" he asked. "You wanted a fresh start," I said. "This is it." He tried to laugh it off. Said we could talk through it. But I'd already frozen the assets. Deb filed a motion ahead of time. We got a court order blocking him from moving funds. We sent a subpoena to his job for records of bonuses and stock grants. I made sure every dime he thought was his was now on hold. He had no idea how deep I dug. Then Ally found out. When she realized the apartment wasn't happening and the money wasn't flowing, she ghosted him. Gone. Deleted her social media. Quit the job within 2 weeks. Moved back to Seattle. Rob didn't see that coming either. He begged. 4 weeks. Said he messed up. Said he was confused. Told me Ally meant nothing. But I wasn't listening anymore. I was done. And I hadn't even started with the real revenge. After Ally left and the apartment lease fell through, Rob moved into a short-term rental near his office. One of those furnished places with beige walls, fake plants, and a fridge that buzzed too loud. He went from bragging about a new life to sitting in a box with nothing but silence and leftovers. He was still trying to control the narrative. At work, he told people I had sabotaged his promotion out of jealousy. That I was bitter and emotional. That I couldn't handle change. But what Rob didn't count on was that one of his coworkers, Jared, was married to a woman I knew. Small world. One afternoon, Jared's wife messaged me on Facebook. We'd only spoken once before, but she said, "I heard what Rob's been saying about you. I thought you should know he's telling people you hacked into his accounts and are trying to ruin his career." That was the final shove I needed. I printed the screenshots. Every text, every hotel receipt, every email. I made a timeline of our marriage, of when the affair started, of when he started hiding money. I included the name of the HR manager at his company, someone Deb had already spoken to once during the financial subpoena. Then I delivered the package. Not to Rob. To the board of directors at his firm. Because what Rob didn't know was that Ally had been under him, professionally, and the company had a strict policy about inter-office relationships between supervisors and their direct reports. He never disclosed it. And in the paperwork, Ally listed him as her mentor. It wasn't just bad behavior. It was a violation. They opened an internal investigation. A week later, Rob was called in and asked to step down from his VP position before they made it public. If he resigned, he could keep his title as consultant and wouldn't be formally terminated. He took the deal. Swallowed his pride. But everyone knew. He tried to lie to the kids, told them he stepped back to focus on personal growth. But our daughter had already seen the HR memo online. She texted me a screenshot and just said, "Guess he forgot to mention this part." She didn't talk to him for 3 months after that. Our son was even colder. Told Rob he'd lost all respect for him. Rob's world got smaller by the week. Friends stopped calling. Mutuals picked sides, and most picked mine. I never badmouthed him. I didn't have to. People saw it for themselves. He went from family man to cliché midlife crisis joke in less than a year. Meanwhile, I was thriving. My business grew fast. A local realtor recommended me to one of the top real estate groups in Naperville. I had so many clients I had to hire a second assistant. I was featured in a small local magazine for women entrepreneurs to watch. But here's the part no one saw coming: Rob tried to come back. Not just emotionally. He tried to move back into the house. He showed up one afternoon with a duffel bag and said he needed a place to reset. I laughed right in his face. "You reset just fine with Ally," I said. Why don't you go find her? She's gone, he mumbled. She wasn't who I thought she was. No, I said. You weren't who I thought you were. I didn't let him in. He stood on the porch for almost 10 minutes before finally walking back to his car. It was raining. He didn't even have an umbrella. I stood behind the door and didn't feel a single ounce of pity. I thought that would be the last time I'd hear from him. But then, 2 weeks later, I got an email from the IRS. Turns out, Rob had underreported income for 2 years straight, part of that hidden checking account mess. And since we filed jointly, I was being audited too. I was furious. I forwarded the email to Deb. She got on a call with them and confirmed that I had no part in it. Luckily, I had already submitted my side of the financial disclosures during the divorce. She sent them everything. But now Rob was being investigated for tax fraud. His job, his reputation, his money, falling apart. And I was just getting started. At this point, I thought the worst of it was over. I had the house. The money was secured. My kids were standing by me. Rob had lost his promotion, his girlfriend, and half his savings. He was being investigated by the IRS. I figured the rest would be cleanup. But I was wrong. 3 weeks after the IRS email, Deb called me. You're not gonna like this, she said. Rob had filed a motion in court to modify the divorce terms. He claimed he was under mental duress when he signed the original agreement. Said the pressure from work and the sudden departure of Ally had clouded his judgment. He was asking the court to re-examine the financial split, trying to claw back a larger share of the house equity and to reduce my share of his future stock payout. I was stunned. This man had an affair, lied, stole, humiliated me, and now he wanted more? I asked Deb, can he even do that? She sighed. He can try. Doesn't mean he'll win. But we have to show up. We have to fight it. So we did. While we prepared for court, I kept digging. I wanted to know why Rob was doing this now. He had to know he didn't stand a chance. It wasn't just desperation. It was something else. Then, through a mutual friend, I found out the real reason. Rob had quietly started dating again. Not just casually. He was seeing a woman named Melissa, a divorcee in her early 40s with 2 teenage kids. She lived in Hinsdale. Apparently, she came from money, her ex-husband was a well-known surgeon. Rob was trying to clean himself up to impress her. Word was, he told her I'd taken advantage of him in the divorce and left him financially ruined. He was playing victim. Again. I knew I had to act, but I didn't want to stoop to his level. So I called Melissa. I introduced myself, politely, and asked if we could meet. She was cautious, but agreed to meet at a coffee shop in Oak Brook. I didn't bring paperwork or drama, I just brought facts. I told her the full story. I showed her the divorce settlement. I told her about Ally, the HR violation, the financial mess. I said, I don't want anything from you. But I thought you should know what you're walking into. She was polite. Thanked me. I didn't expect her to believe me. But 3 days later, Rob dropped the motion to modify the divorce. Apparently, Melissa kicked him to the curb. But it didn't stop there. Rob started sending me angry texts. Said I was sabotaging his happiness, ruining his future, and turning people against him. He even accused me of stalking him. I saved every message. Then, a few nights later, I came home to find that someone had thrown red paint across my garage door. It dripped down like blood. My neighbor's security camera caught a blurry image of a man in a hoodie running off. He looked about Rob's build, but it wasn't clear. I didn't accuse him. I just filed a police report and emailed it to Deb. Then I filed for a restraining order. Not because I was afraid. Because I was building my case. I started recording everything. Every time he called, every time he texted, every time he showed up near my property. I kept it calm. No emotion. Just documentation. Then, 2 weeks later, I got the break I needed. One of Rob's former coworkers, Anna, reached out to me. She said, "I've been sitting on this for a while. But I feel like you should have it." She forwarded me an email thread between Rob and Ally from the early stages of their affair. In it, Rob bragged about hiding money and faking a consulting deal through a shell company to avoid paying taxes. He wrote, "Even if Brenda finds out, she's too old school to ever prove it." That email changed everything. I turned it over to my lawyer and to the IRS. And now, Rob wasn't just looking at tax fraud. He was looking at felony financial deception. He still didn't know what was coming. He thought the worst thing I'd done was file for divorce. He didn't realize I'd been building a wall around him this whole time, brick by brick, lie by lie. And soon, everything he still had left was going to be gone, too. When I handed over that email from Anna to the IRS, I didn't think it would be a huge deal. I figured maybe it would help their investigation move faster. But I didn't expect what happened next. Turns out, Rob's fake consulting company wasn't just something he made up to impress Ally. He actually filed paperwork for it. Opened a business account. Claimed fake expenses. Sent fake invoices. He even listed some fake clients, 2 of which turned out to be real companies that had no idea he was using their names. Within a month, Rob got a letter saying he was under criminal investigation for tax fraud and business misrepresentation. His face went pale when the notice was delivered. His sister, who was still friends with me, told me he threw up in the kitchen sink after he opened it. I felt nothing. The state pressed charges. It didn't go federal, but it was still serious. His company, embarrassed and trying to protect their reputation, cut him loose completely. No more consultant. No references. Just a quiet exit and a warning to never speak of the incident again. He tried to fight the charges at first. Hired a lawyer he couldn't afford. Burned through his savings. Then he tried to take out a loan using the West Loop apartment as collateral, but by then his credit was trashed. He started selling things, his car, his watch, even the vintage guitar he'd kept for 20 years. Anything to keep himself above water. But it wasn't enough. When the court date came, I sat in the back. Quiet. Calm. He didn't look at me. He pled guilty to 2 counts of tax fraud and 1 count of filing false business records. No prison, but a year of house arrest, 5 years of probation, and a fine so large he'll be paying it off until retirement, if he ever retires. They also made him take mandatory financial ethics classes. The judge didn't even bother to scold him. She just said, "You seem to think you're smarter than everyone else. You're not." After that, the calls stopped. He went quiet. I heard through his sister that he moved out of the rental and into a shared 2-bedroom with a guy from his old college. He lost his health insurance, had to sell off his half of his 401k to pay fines. Even Ally blocked him. She sent me an email after the sentencing and just said, "You were right. I was stupid." Melissa? Gone. His kids? Still barely talked to him. But I wasn't done. I had one last move. For months, I'd been meeting with a producer from a local podcast that tells real-life stories about betrayal and financial scams. I told them everything, names changed, of course. They ate it up. The episode came out 3 weeks ago. Called The VP Who Faked His Future. It blew up. Not nationwide, but big enough that everyone in Naperville with ears heard it. They didn't name him, but enough details were there that people knew. His voicemail lit up. One of his old coworkers sent it to him and said, "Hey, is this you?" He's now the punchline at the very same rooftop bars where he once gave speeches. And me? I'm booked 6 months out in my staging business. I started mentoring young women in business through a local nonprofit. My daughter said she's proud of me. My son told me he learned more about strength from watching me these last 2 years than he ever did from Rob. I didn't get revenge through screaming. Or cheating back. Or ruining his life in one loud moment. I did it by building something better while his lies collapsed on top of him. And now? Every day he wakes up and sees how small his world has become. That's my revenge. And I didn't have to lift a finger. He did it all himself.